And here we go on another week of Twirl Talk Tuesday. And tonight is about siblings. And it's about siblings who have been involved in the sport together. But also, I brought on a couple siblings that one twirled and one did not. So I thought it was a really interesting dynamic to talk about how that works together and how it works in the family. And it was really inspired by seeing one of our members, the mom posted about her birthday, and she's a triplet. And I had no idea that she was a triplet. So that was kind of fun to go, all these people have siblings. Some we really see and some we don't. So I wanted to be able to have a conversation about it. So on tonight is Jennifer Marcus Schwartz and Melissa Marcus Vicente. So they have grown up as siblings in the public eye. From the first day I ever saw one of the Marcuses, I saw both of them. And now we get to see Melissa with her daughter. She'll have two growing up with it. And then they'll have a cousin in the mix too. So we'll be talking about those dynamics. Then we have Sabrina and Caroline Smith. So grew up in the twirling eye. I always saw Caroline as the supporter of Sabrina. And I don't know that I ever got to see her twirl, but I always knew who she was. And then Konlie and Kenzlie Westerfield. And I used to laugh that Kenzlie was like the best assistant coach around because she was a sister that didn't twirl, but she was so supportive and there for Konlie and is an athlete in her own right. So we'll get to meet you all from that way. And Kenzlie was a collegiate golfer and a golf coach and highly competitive in the golf scene, whereas Konlie was in the twirling scene. So I just want to say hello to everybody and thank you for joining us tonight. And I want to be able to just touch on some of the things of how you got started and what the difficulties were. And we've got some panelists in with a lot of good input too on the second half that we'll open it to in the gallery. So Jen, do you ever remember a time that you and Melissa didn't twirl together?
No. I don't know, my earliest memories are twirling in parades and competing and everything, and it was always just with my mom and sister. So we always joke though, I have a really terrible memory of my early childhood. So like I don't have memories until I was like 5 years old. So all I know is twirling.
So Melissa, do you remember, did you and Jen start at the same time?
No, I started in a elementary school program when I was 5. So I started for a year and then I did parades and I went to my first competition. And then I think Jennifer started when she turned 4. So we were about 3. We did a year that she didn't twirl.
And do you remember, did you want her to twirl or was it your thing?
We both danced and then we both twirled and we both just did the same thing. So
it was just what you, it's like if a mom dressed you alike, that's just what you did.
Yeah.
That's what mom did. Okay. So Sabrina and Caroline, tell me about your history. Who twirled first and how did that happen?
So it's actually kind of funny because my grandmother twirled and she was a coach and she judged parades. My mother and my aunt both twirled and me and Sabrina are 12 months apart. So I think we kind of got thrown in it together. We danced, twirled, did gymnastics, everything together. And we had the matching outfits too.
Well, I know just from a survival standpoint as a parent, my kids both did gymnastics because it was just like, I'm not going to ice hockey rink at 5 a.m. and then running to the gym with this. So my son and my daughter were in gymnastics for sheer convenience. But then of course the boys and the girls always have a different schedule. So I wound up driving 40 minutes every day. Konlie and Kenzlie, what's your history on how twirling came into your life and why one of you and not the other?
Well, I'm the younger sister, so I don't really know why she never did. She's kind of more like basketball and soccer. She played more of the sports that are like associated with the high school, I guess, from in Lebanon. And then I was really little and my mom was a teacher at the elementary school that I went to. And the secretary there, she like was a baton coach, but just locally. And she would always like give lessons to little girls in the gym and stuff. And she kept sending my mom videos and like pictures of costumes and all this stuff. So then she's like, just have her come down to the gym. And then I went down and she said I just like naturally knew what I was doing. So she just started giving me lessons.
So Kenzlie, did you ever want to do it? Kenzlie was just getting on from switching vehicles here. So you're muted still, Kenzlie. Let me see.
Yeah. Hey, no, I didn't really know about it, I guess. So I grew up with a basketball in my hand. I learned how to dribble when I learned how to walk. So being from Indiana, that was kind of my main sport. And I didn't really know anything about it until Konlie started. So it was a whole new world to me. I did gymnastics when I was younger. So I did have that sort of background, I guess, but never picked up a baton. I still can't really twirl, so.
My daughter understands that. So Jen, what was the best thing about having your sister twirl with you?
I would say it was like my later years in competition when she probably had already retired, because then she sort of stepped into like a mentor coach role. You know, when we were competing, from like the years that I really can remember, you know, there's a lot of like competitiveness and both people like vying for attention, either from a parent or a coach or anything. But as we both got older, she sort of like stepped into that like biggest cheerleader role. And so that was like the best, having, you know, being at nationals or world championships and having her there just to be that positive, you know, like you can do it, like you do it all the time in practice, you're the best. And so it was like just really nice to have that positive reinforcement and sort of go into like that dynamic between us.
It's probably true. It's just an extra person in your pocket. Like,
who knows what they're talking about.
So
She's like an expert, so she really could help me of like why something wasn't working or how to calm down, because she knew, you know, she knew me best.
Okay. And Melissa, what was the best part for you having Jen twirl? When you
Well, it was probably having a practice partner all the time. I mean, you know, we could always, it was never practicing by yourself. You always had somebody, and because we were competitive, we were always pushing ourselves to do more, and having that person there, it's just pushing yourself because you don't want the other person to get better than you. And you know, we were always a pairs and teams, so we always were working together. I enjoyed working with somebody more than I enjoyed twirling by myself. So that was the best part for me.
True. I tell you what, because that's the hardest thing, are all these kids trying to practice on their own. And see, this is something I haven't even thought about. So Sabrina and Caroline, how was your supportive relationship for each other?
Honestly, I think kind of the same with Jen and Melissa. I mean, Caroline quit when she was younger, but I just having her there has been the best support system for me growing up. You quit when,
well, I think like, I can't find a better word, but the person that gets on your nerves the most knows you the most, so they can tell you how to do something, even if it makes you mad. You kind of have that person in the back of your head, and you're like, oh, okay. And I know, like, I could tell her before she goes out on the floor if she's gonna do great or if she's gonna bomb it, just from looking at her face. Just because, like, I know what she's thinking in that moment. So it's been really cool, you know, to watch her succeed and be there over the past few years, every step of the way, and see that how far she's gotten.
So Sabrina, how did it feel when Caroline wanted to quit? Did you feel like you were being abandoned a little bit?
What'd you say? Sorry.
Did you feel like you were being abandoned a little bit?
Honestly, I don't think I saw it that way. I think, you know, Caroline is a creative soul, and she like really likes to explore other options, and like wanted to cheer and play softball and other things. So I think I knew we were always so close growing up, obviously, because we're so close in age as well. So I think I knew in the back of my mind she'd always be there for me. And you know, she is my favorite person to have at competitions. Like, I beg her to come to competition. She's the one person I'm like, please come. But so I knew, you know, she would always be there for me. And I think we both were on a team at that point, so I did have other people around to practice with and to twirl with. So I guess I didn't feel abandoned, because I knew she'd still be there.
She just had to enjoy the hour or 2 hour car rides to the gym by herself.
So Konlie and Kenzlie, was interesting because I've never had a set of siblings that didn't twirl together, that I just took that sibling in as a part of the team. So Konlie, how did Kenzlie help feed you from a competitive standpoint? And Kenzlie, what did you get out of that?
I feel like she, like, even though she really had absolutely no idea what I was doing, she would just like try her hardest to like understand why something wasn't working, or like she would constantly like tell me like if I didn't want to go practice, or like I was like I'm just done for today, like she would tell me like you know that Kyle would make you do that again in your head at least, and like she, you know, like she would just constantly remind me and be that constant support for me. And I feel like I I liked hearing those words from her more than anyone.
You would tolerate them from her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of used that kind of against you, that I would I would kind of use her as a backdoor person. So Kenzlie, how did you feel about your role in Konlie's twirling world?
I mean, I know as an athlete, it is hard to take criticism or even positive encouragement from parents, just because they never know what they're talking about, right? So as a sibling, I guess I had a different lens, and she was a little more willing to hear stuff from me, even if it was the exact same thing mom was going to say, or even you were going to say. So I mean, I think she just made me so proud, and so it was always just coming from the heart. And I loved watching her twirl, and I made so many friends like from her teammates and everything, and even like the Winterbergs. My drive to Syracuse for work was 10 hours from home, and they were about 5 hours right in the middle. So I stayed at their house a couple times, just because they were so nice to let me come stay to break up the drive.
Well, because you were the non-twirling part of the team. I mean,
Yeah.
so how did you feel? How did you feel it balanced out from attention and support? Did you feel like you got that same support in your sporting world that Konlie had in her sporting world?
Absolutely. My parents, I think of every sport I played, basketball, soccer, tennis, golf, softball. I think they've maybe missed a handful of my games my entire life. So when Konlie was twirling and everything, if necessary, they would divide and conquer. So I would always get dad because mom knew more about the twirling world, but that was fine with me. So I always had at least one of them at all of my events. And so they definitely did a great job balancing both of us and being supportive for all of our sports.
And did you feel it was a bonus that you had a sport that you could go practice with a team? So it's not like you needed a parent at your practice like Konlie needed at her practice. Did that kind of help?
Yeah, I think so. Like I could even practice in the backyard for basketball. We had a court back in the yard, so I could practice on my own, do whatever on my own. I didn't have to have like someone filming me to be able to figure out what I was doing. Sometimes for golf that would help, but I could always, if I needed to, stand my phone up on my bag, and it was close enough. Like I didn't need that per se.
Okay. So Jen and Melissa, I used to always have a running joke with all the sisters that I've coached that if one had a good lesson, the other one had a bad lesson, and vice versa. If one had a bad lesson, the other one had a good lesson. I don't know why it worked that way. Maybe it was, predetermined fate because I felt like that. But did you ever feel that way in your practices?
Well, we always had coaches that lived far away. So the coach whoever it was, would fly in for the weekend, like 1 week in a month, and then stay and teach us and coach all day Saturday and Sunday. So it was never like one lesson. It was like an 8-hour lesson, and it was like a couple hour, like 2 hours with one of us. And then when we get burnt out or, begin to have an attitude or, something, then they would start working with the other one and would kind of like bounce back and forth. So I'm sure there were times when it went well for one of us and, went south. And then that's when we would like transition and the next person would come in and have a lesson while like you pulled off. Because, growing up, it's a lot of new material and a lot of correction. And so it's like overwhelming for a kid, especially when you're working. But that was always the situation that we were in with coaches. Not living near us.
Well, and that was another bonus of having a sibling, that when you needed a break, you could step away. Melissa, What was your thought? What's your thought about that?
Well, I don't remember me and Jennifer, but I know with my kids, one kid has a good day and then the other kid has a really bad day. And then the next day it's the opposite kid. So I know I'm living that right now.
I mean, I don't know. I just always figured with sisters that like the one would be watching and go, oh, she just had a really bad lesson. I'm gonna step it up. So it was funny to watch. Sabrina and Caroline, did you ever have that dynamic?
I don't think we ever really. Well, yeah, okay.
I don't think
Yeah,
we
didn't really have lessons together. I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah. So she would have. I think your lessons were on Tuesdays and mine were on
Yeah.
Wednesdays or
Yeah.
something like that. Which kind of wasn't that great because, like I said, we lived an hour and a half, 2 hours from the gym.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to touch on what Kenzlie was saying too, on the support side. Yeah, I think it's just really important. Me and Kenzlie are both older, but in those teenage years, it does get a little bit hard when you start understanding the money that goes into baton and the time. And I think it's a little harder, a bigger pill to swallow, I guess, because you're like, well, why does she get a new costume that's this much and I can't get a new phone or go to the beach with my friends type situation. But once you get past that stage, I think everything gets a little bit sweeter because you get to spend that time, you get to watch them succeed and all of that. So I think it's just really important to do the divide and conquer if you're able, but always show support to everyone and kind of get through that tough time because it's inevitable. I feel like everyone kind of goes through that.
Well, that was one of my questions was about finances and wondering if you ever counted the dollars of what it was. So Sabrina, if you got the new costume, did that create any feelings about how you felt like you had to deal with Caroline over that or traveling to Europe?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Because I mean, especially with the traveling part, obviously I've gotten to go to so many awesome places. And a lot of that time I either was like traveling with my aunt or my mom, it just depended. But I do, you do have that guilt. Like I always say, I want to take a trip with my sister to go overseas or whatever, because she didn't have the chance to do that.
I don't even have a passport.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it is, having that guilt, but then, I know the time and the energy that goes into baton twirling. I mean, I know she definitely understands that I do put so much time and so much effort into succeeding in twirling. So I think that kind of can sometimes conquer over that guilt, because I know that in the long run, I did earn that trip to Europe, obviously, to be on the IC team or to go to Worlds or to travel to different places. So I think that it's just something just getting used to. I do still feel bad about it, but I mean, I always say I wouldn't have traveled so much without baton.
Right. And let me tell you, you'll never get over it. So, I mean, in my family, I always felt like I was kind of the golden child and I had a brother that no one knew I had a brother. And I remember our neighbor lady one time when I was feeling bad about something, and our neighbor lady looked and she said, Kyle, she said, I watched you in that driveway for hours and hours and hours. And she's like, you've earned everything that came your way. So it's hard though, from a sibling dynamic. So Jen and Melissa, did you ever count costumes back and forth, or did you have any numeric accounting that you looked at?
No, but I know that at the end of my career, it was like, you didn't used to twirl as long as you do now. But somehow, like, I thought I would probably be done when I went to college, but my career kept extending. So I know at the end, my mom be like, well, you're not going to be twirling much longer, so you don't get a new costume. And I kept getting like hand-me-down costumes, like, oh, this one doesn't look good on Jen, so you can have this one. And so like, I was like, how come Jen gets 5 new costumes and I don't get any? She's like, well, you're almost done, right? And I never ended. I just kept going.
Just kept it going. Jennifer, were you ever aware of that?
Yeah, because I can think of one costume that I didn't like, and I think it was like made a little bit short because I'm taller than Melissa, and we called it the Shrek costume because it was like bright green, and so I gave it to Melissa to wear it, and she looked great in it, but she got the Shrek hand-me-down costume that I never wore.
Well, that's probably a first when the older one gets the younger one's costume.
Yeah, but I think for most of our lives, everything was like very even because, you know, we were both competing. So if she got a new costume, I got a new, you know, my mom's always been very fair, even like Christmas presents or something. Like we always got marshmallows on hot chocolate. You get the exact same amount. It's just easier. So I think we always got the same until the end when Melissa's
yeah. Konlie, were you ever aware of the financial differences, or did you keep track of that at all?
I mean, I obviously was very aware that, and like when I kind of first started, my mom would always say like, "This is very expensive," like, and I kind of was just like, I know, Mom, but like, look at all like the pretty rhinestones and stuff. Like, I like was never like super aware of it. Obviously, I became very aware that it's very expensive. And I have always kind of like how Sabrina said, like, felt bad, like, because like Kenzlie doesn't even have a passport either. Like, and like my mom and dad, like, my dad's still never been out of the country, but my mom, like, the first time she's been out of the country is when she took me to Croatia for like international cup. So like, I just, like, I felt so bad, but like at the same time, like Kyle and my mom, like, were saying, like, you've obviously earned like a spot on the team, like, to go. So like, it's like a one in a lifetime, like stuff like that. So I don't know. It kind of always, like, you do feel the guilt of, because like obviously high school basketball or golf isn't the same as like traveling to Croatia. So
right. Kenzlie, were you aware of that at all? And did you have any feelings about it?
I mean, I was a little jealous probably of the traveling, just because I would love to travel and I don't have a passport. And when you guys had nationals in California, I actually dropped Mom and Konlie off at the airport on my birthday. So I spent a few birthdays without the whole family because it was right around nationals time. So like that, I mean, it was fine. She earned it and I was proud of her and all of that. And so it was kind of cool to get up early in the morning and watch online because the time difference was so great. But I mean, I don't think I really care about the money if there was a difference. I have no clue. I mean, I played sports for so long and golf's not the cheapest sport either.
Right.
So it just kind of lends itself to, I mean, the sport is about kind of traveling and going places. So I'm sure there are some differences, but anytime my parents watched me golf in college, they had a hotel room also, and my dad drove to Pennsylvania to watch me play, and I got to go on some trips with the team on spring break. So,
well, it's interesting to hear because the common thread among these three sets of siblings that I'm hearing is the positive influence of the parents and how they handled it. And so obviously you guys have been great humans. So tell me the dirt, Jen and Melissa, between the two of you, who's more competitive?
Oh,
Equal, for sure.
Yeah.
We're super competitive.
Was there ever a time you remember is there ever a time you remember getting upset about, did you have to compete against each other and somebody won and you had to figure it out?
All the time.
So how did you manage that?
I don't think we managed it well.
We just, I mean, from the point where we both were in that, 16 plus age, we were just always against each other. We'd win our age group or we'd be in the top two and then we were against each other. And, a lot of times it was 1-2, we were the top two and, and then it got to the point where Jen obviously became who she is and then she would beat me. But then it was like, okay, well, I only lost to Jen. Like, that's okay.
Okay.
So, but that was hard. I mean, that took a long time to be okay with getting beat by your sister all the time. But I think we both had our events that we were successful in. So, I think I was more of the artistic twirl and, I love the multiple batons, but obviously Jennifer is extremely gifted in that area. So.
Well, and I'm a real human behavior watcher, and there's lots of people that watched. So you two being, twirlebrity type people, of course people watch that. So were you aware of that? Or did you just have to manage it between you two?
Aware of what?
People watching how you were going to navigate one of you winning and one of you not.
I think I was always aware that people were watching all the time, not just like if we were like who won between us, but they're just always just watching you to see how you react, how you behave, if you're a sore loser, if you're a good sport. So I'm like I'm the type of person I really care about what people think of me. It's like a good thing and not as great thing in some aspects. And so I was always like, oh, someone's looking, you have to, like put a smile on your face. So I think I was always like really aware of that.
So Lori, if you can unmute, I'm going to drag you into this. So Lori, the mom,
I'm still laughing about the costume.
Yeah. So when your girls were against each other, how did you navigate one being disappointed and one being happy?
If as long as I felt that it worked out the way it should have, because I always believe that the person who did the best job should be the one who should win, regardless. I wanted them both to do the best jobs they possibly could, but obviously, maybe I'm sure at some point one won that I thought the other one should have. And that would be frustrating. But, the fact of the matter is only one person could win. And if one of them complained, my answer to them was, you don't want to get beat, work harder.
Yep. And it's true. It's what coaches should be telling parents too, that, let the performances decide it. So no, that was really good. I think that that's good to not feel like you have to pacify one child or that you have to play down the other one winning. I think that that's what parents struggle with, maybe, is like, you want to take care of the heart of this one, and then maybe sometimes you don't let the one who won get the glory that they deserve. So that's where I see problems in it, potential problems.
You're not going to win all of the time. So you have to be a good loser also, but they were both given, as the opportunities. And at the end of the day, the judge is the one who made the decision. So I just, tried to be supportive for both of them, but the judge made the decision, it had nothing to do with me.
Oh, well, good. Well, as Mimi, you can just keep that little role going then here in the next few years.
Yeah, I'm trying.
So Sabrina and Caroline, the two of you, who's more competitive?
Well, let's just say, like, when we play board games as kids, if Sabrina didn't win, she wasn't playing.
It wasn't that true. I think I'm also very like inwardly competitive with myself. I think as I got older, I'm not as competitive with people that I'm competing with, but I just always wanted to do the best for myself. So I think that's where my competitiveness came in. But I don't think I was like super competitive towards like winning.
No, I hold it over her head. I beat her in one competition when we were really little, and I'm like, I was always better. It's fine.
You can own that every day, all day. That's right. You take it. So Konlie and Kenzlie, what are you competitive in towards each other? If you're not in the same sport, is there anything that you're competitive with each other about?
I mean, obviously she didn't twirl, so I couldn't like be competitive against that. But I feel like I always wanted to be competitive against her, but she's 6 years older than me, and I was always like the little kid that I was like tagging along, trying to play like with her and stuff. And she played like every sport that I didn't. So like I would be like, well, can we play like tennis outside? Like I just wanted to play for fun, and she would always beat me, and then I would just get so frustrated because I didn't know how. So then I was like, you know what, we're just not gonna play. So I don't know, I like wanted to be competitive, but I knew that she was just always gonna beat me on those type of things because I didn't play them, because I always spent all my time twirling and cheering and doing gymnastics. So I was like, well, then pick up a baton. Like, but
is there anything, Kenzlie, around the house you two were competitive with?
Probably just being mom and dad's favorite. Or trying to. I mean, yeah, we never played the same sport. And I would get frustrated that she couldn't play very well with me. Like, I just wanted to have like some kind of fair back and forth, like even just hitting the tennis ball back and forth. Like we couldn't even do that. So I
Okay,
don't know.
so I've
Wow.
got a question for y'all to think about. So Jen, I'm going to go first because I spend more time on Zoom with you than anyone else. So when is a moment that you were most proud of your sister in the activity? What was
Oh,
your
it's
proudest
really-
moment with her?
My proudest moment of her is it's the proudest moment of everyone is when we won the 2002 World Championships with team. It'll always just be my greatest memory of everything because just like the culmination of working together throughout the year, competing at the World Championships together. I think that was our first year competing at Worlds on a team level together. And so we all just wanted everyone to do their best, like our best. And I was able to handle my nerves better than her. And so I just remember her being like so extraordinarily nervous before our finals performance. And so the fact that she did, the job that she needed to do, I mean, we all did the job that we needed to do. I was always just so proud of her because I think she put more pressure on herself whenever it came to team. That probably goes for a lot of people because you don't ever want to disappoint your teammates. When you're competing again, by yourself, you're just disappointing yourself, but you never want to be the reason why a team loses or, scores lower or anything like that. So the fact that she was able to like overcome how nervous she was right before that performance and do the job, she wanted to do, I was like so proud of her, but I was just so proud of like the entire team of being able to handle that level, of like nervousness. And I don't know, there's like not a whole lot to like, unless you've been there and like, not to like compare nerves, but unless you've been like, the world championship title is on the line, like, and you barely can breathe. And so anyone that can handle that type of pressure at that level, like you've just got to be so proud of them, even if they're your competitor. So like even people that I competed against that like nailed it when they needed to, like I wasn't mad at them. It was just like, wow, that's like really amazing that you were able to handle yourself and do the job you wanted to do when it counted.
Well, isn't that the coolest thing about sport? Because like the rest of your life, that moment can never be taken away. And I think that's just really cool about sport.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like a crier, but like I tear up even when I'm watching like basketball team win the world championships or like football team win the Super Bowl. Like I get chills because I'm like so happy for that person because I can empathize and know like probably what it took to get there. So I'm just like so happy for whoever like wins when it comes to sport or the Olympics, anything like that.
Melissa, what's your moment with Jen that you're the absolute most proud of her that you can remember sitting back and go, yeah, that's my sister?
Oh, definitely when she got all the 10s when she did 3 baton. She had so many years she had gone out there in finals and she had like one mistake, one little error, and it was like 9.9, 9.85, 9.95, and it's like I just wanted her to get, it's like, you can do it. You can just do the job when you have to. So definitely when she went out there and she finally had that no drop in finals and she got the straight 10s, it was like the culmination of everything that she had worked towards. Again, there's so many, I mean, you're talking about 3 batons, like to go out there and not have an error is pretty unbelievable. And the things that she did, it's just nobody's ever done that. Nobody probably will ever be able to do that again. So that's definitely my proudest moment of her. And to be there and be able to, like, I never could watch Jennifer. I don't know when that started, but like I was bad luck for Jennifer to watch her. So I would literally walk around the gym when she was going on for finals and everyone's like, don't you want to watch? I'm like, nope. And I knew her routine and I could do it with her. I still do that with my kids. And I've done that with my team where I just won't even watch. I'm like, how's it going? And like people come back and tell me after they perform how she did. So, I would work with her. Like we would practice in the back before the 3 baton performance. And I was like, did she do it? So it was really exciting.
It's kind of fun to know you on that level, to know like that I've seen those moments. It's really fun to know that. So Sabrina, when's a moment that you were most proud of Caroline?
I've been thinking, I can't think of anything in twirling because like I said, we were younger when we competed together. But like she's my older sister, so I think in most aspects I look up to her in many ways. And I think like just her being herself and being so open and honest with everyone and very I mean, like I feel like you just don't really, I mean, you don't, I don't know. I'm trying to think. Like I think she's like my biggest role model in life and she's my biggest supporter. So I think I look up to a lot of her characteristics. And I want to be like that. Most of the time, that's what I strive for. I think, she's made me a better person in a lot of aspects. And she's just really authentically herself. And that's something that I really not have a hard time doing, but I think I live to please people. And I try, like Jen said, I really am aware of what people think of me. And, I think I want to be more like her in the fact that, she's not afraid to be herself. And I really love that. So
this is so fun to listen to because I've got, granddaughters right now that are 4 and almost 2, and they're busy just like fighting over everything and pulling each other's hair out. So I'm like thinking ahead to when they're adults and you just don't even know what that will be, what that will look like. So I think this is really fun for people to hear. Caroline, when is the moment you were most proud of Sabrina?
I would be lying if I didn't say when she won College Best Major of America. I was actually all the way in the top of the stands, and there was a lot of people that came up to me after. They were like, I didn't know whether to record her reaction or your reaction, because deep down I knew. I mean, like I knew it was her time. I was hoping it was her time. She had put so much. She left it all on the floor that year, and there's many times where I would be like, oh, I don't know, and she wasn't so sure about it, but deep in my heart I knew. So right when they said the University of South Carolina, I started crying. I ran down 4 flights of bleachers and like jumped onto the floor, dropped my bag. So that, and then also getting to watch her twirl in the field as a college performer, that's really where she started to shine. She had a lot of doubts. She's very hard on herself about baton, but she never once had a doubt about being a college featured twirler. So I think those are my 2 proudest moments.
And Kenzlie, or Konlie, I'm going to go with you first. Konlie, when's a moment in sport for Kenzlie that you were the most proud of her?
I was just so much younger. So like during like her basketball games and stuff, I would just like find my little friends and play with them. Like I would watch her, but like I was never like actually fully paying attention because I didn't even know what was going on. So I don't know. I would just say my proudest moment of her is getting to see her graduate from Franklin with her master's, because I know that she has worked in sports and like loved sports so much that she got her master's in athletic training, that I just knew that she was going to be able to do what she loved for the rest of her life. And like just like seeing like her face as she walked across the stage, like knowing that she actually made it and like that she actually earned that herself. And I know she worked so hard through like the whole concussion in high school and stuff, and she just is so smart, and like I can just tell that she's going to do such great things. I was mainly very proud of her when she first got the job at Syracuse University and decided to be the athletic trainer for the men's lacrosse team, because I could just see her like watching the videos of like the football games and stuff, and you could like get like a 0.2 second glimpse of her like in the background, and just made me so proud.
And Kenzlie, what's your most proud moment of Konlie?
I think it's got to be when I found out she qualified to go to Croatia on the IC team. Seeing her be able to go somewhere else, like for team like USA, that's huge. And I remember when I first saw her, I ran to her and picked her up and gave her a big hug and just held on to her.
Don't you think with all of you as sisters that whatever success your sister has, you have some ownership and part of that you're a part of that? So I'm going to open the galleries. We've got some other siblings here. And I want to encourage, I'm going to ask the Petersons first, because they're my only male female set of siblings here. And then to our surprise, a couple weeks ago, Johnny, we heard you have other sons that twirled. So
Yes.
tell me how this all started and who all twirled.
Okay, well, basically, my mom twirled. So then I took over. And my first son, when he was 2 years old, we were at AYLP with my core. And he said, Mommy, I want to do it. And the next year he walked on the floor. And a year after that, his brother was on the floor with them. So they both started in 0 to 6. Several years later, Austin came along and Harley. And Austin did not twirl until he was 12.
Okay.
And when Harley started, he looked at me and said, Mom, I kind of want to try this. So he picked it up at 12, and these two have been next to each other ever since. So it's definitely in the family.
Well, I think that if anything, for watching you at competitions and with the IC team and all of the vantage point that I've had, you two are a unique set of siblings and that you're very much teammates and that we see you together all the time. Are you ever competitive with each other?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. I mean,
Okay.
anything from trying to outdo each other, a trick in the gym, to who can do the routines the cleanest, or even comparing score sheets.
Yeah.
I mean, and it even goes even outside of the twirling world as well. I mean, we're always competing against each other for something, or seeing who can do something better.
And is it just a good natured or does it ever get ugly?
I think it's always a good nature. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes it can go a little too far, but that's just a sibling thing. I think everyone has experienced that, where it goes a little bit too far, but it's always meant in good fun.
So who's the peacekeeper between you two?
I would say I am. I would say I am. But I mean, I guess being, the older one, it's kind of my job is to keep the peace sometimes and say, okay, this has been enough.
Uh-huh. Jen and Melissa, who's the peacekeeper between you two?
Jennifer.
Because you want to please people, right?
Yeah. I don't like people being like upset, or so even if we get in if we ever got in a fight, like I'd be the one that came back to try and fix the pieces.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm a quick forgiver. So
Uh-huh.
if I do something, that wasn't nice, I'd want to be, a couple of minutes later, I'd want, to be friends again.
Yeah. Caroline.
I'd end up apologizing for something she did just because I wanted to resolve it.
Who's the peacekeeper in the Smith sisters?
I would say probably both of us. We kind of have an ongoing joke. If we say something mean to each other, get in an argument, and then we'll be not even 2 minutes later, someone will say so what do you want for dinner? Or we just kind of just completely move on before we even give it time to boil over. So I would say both of us, or our mom. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Kenzlie and Konlie, I know the peacekeeper's Kenzlie. Am I right about that? All right. So Audrey, I am going to impose on you because you've had some pretty strong dynamics in your family. And with your daughters, who's the peacekeeper? Don't forget you're muted. So go ahead and unmute, Audrey. Who's the
There you go.
peacekeeper in your daughters?
Oh, probably Melissa, my youngest one.
And
She
so
she was pretty level-headed. Leanne was a fierce competitor, and yeah.
And so
Yeah.
does your granddaughter take after more of her mother or her aunt?
Oh, her mother.
And so
It's like living with Leanne all over again, basically. Yeah.
and so is Melissa helpful at all in that situation? Is she around?
No, she lives in Cincinnati, so it's about 4.5 hours away, but we do send her the videos, of, when we film Arian, and she definitely puts in her 2 cents. Well, she needs to do this and she needs to do this. And so she's still involved in it that way. Every once in a while, she's come to AYLP. She's gone to Twirlmania. So she's come a couple times to kind of sit and watch, but now that she's a new mommy, that's kind of a little bit more difficult.
So Melissa, now that you're a mom with 2 daughters, what lessons are you learning, or what are you navigating that you didn't anticipate?
They're just like me and Jennifer. I mean, it's living my life again through my kids. They are super competitive. They're 2 years apart. They're 2 years and 4 months. Me and Jennifer are 3 years apart. I think what I've learned is I knew that I could not coach them. I twirl obviously I practice with them every day, you know, because Kathy is their coach and she lives in Washington. So I'm with them every day, but I knew I had to get somebody to coach them because I knew from my mom, like we've always had a coach out. I knew that I couldn't do it and it wouldn't be a healthy relationship. So, you know, I'm mommy still, even though I practice with them. And, but they're just like me and Jennifer, super competitive, always want my attention. I've learned through virtual schooling that I need to practice with them separately. So I practice with Sydney and then I practice with Chloe, and that seems to work a lot better. It doesn't work every day that we have the time to do that, but that's what I've learned to do.
Okay, so Jen, if Zoe's gonna twirl, which we've seen videos of her, how does that get thrown into the mix with cousins?
I think I don't know. I think she's just gonna look up to them because they're about 6 and 8 years older, or like 5 and 7 years older. So I don't think they'll ever be close enough in age to be competitive. I think she's just gonna want to be just like them. So I think there'll be more role models, and she'll be like their like distant little sister that they'll want to help and coach and, you know, try to make their best. But what's interesting is I'm pregnant now with a little boy, and so it's like the first boy in like I don't know, like our whole like world. So after listening to the other panelists and like their relationship, it's just really interesting. It's going to be interesting if Zoe does twirl and I have a son, and they'll be 21 months apart, to see their relationship, because I've never experienced that. I only know sisters, and then my sister has 2 girls and my mom is a sister. So I only know that sister relationship. So it will be really interesting to see the dynamic if Zoe twirls and, you know, if my son doesn't twirl. But then I'll also have to focus to make him feel valued and support him in whatever he's interested in. So that'll be like a whole new water that I'm treading.
Yeah, it was interesting because of me having a son and a daughter, in that I created things to make sure they had the same history and the same traditions, that they could share that it's fun for me to watch their relationship now, because they have a whole language and a whole history of things that I'm not a part of, that is really good for me to watch. So Sabrina and Caroline, if you're going to teach little ones that are sisters, how would you help the mom? What's your advice for a parent trying to navigate that?
They're not the same.
Yeah.
You can't
point.
you know, like for example, Sabrina's Sabrina and Caroline's Caroline. So I think a lot of people, you know, especially with younger children, they get frustrated and they're like, well, why can't you do it? Your little sister can do it. Or, you know, she's beginner and you're intermediate and she can do this better than you, type situation. And I think that's really hard on kids, because then they're like, they want to give up. And I kind of had a similar situation in Baton. You know, my sister, you kept twirling, so she advanced further than me. And I was never going to catch up to her. She was just too far gone. But so that's kind of, that did play a factor in why I wanted to leave Baton. Not necessarily because I didn't want to lose to her, obviously, but it just, it was her thing. It was her thing. And I'm not Sabrina, and I didn't want to be Sabrina or come close to Sabrina. So I kind of found my own thing. And I think it's important to separate the two.
I think that that's really good. And what I found in my history coaching, and Kathy, I'll ask you about this too, but in a set of sisters that we have, I think it's only natural that the younger one is inspired by the older one. So the younger one quite often advances faster than the younger one did. And it's to the older one's credit. So you don't want to say that the younger one usually surpasses the older one, but simply because of time and interest and exposure, that was my experience. Kathy, do you have that experience with siblings? You're muted.
Well, I don't know that the younger, they have different, they're just different, and they have different needs. The thing that I have always tried to do with teaching siblings is never have them feel like they're competing for my attention, because they compete against each other enough. And so sometimes it's hard, but every lesson you have to make them feel like they were equally as proud of their accomplishment or their lesson as their sister was. Because I just never want them to feel like I favor one over the other. I think that's I think that's a really hard thing. Things they do that anyway naturally, so they don't need someone from the outside, especially if you see them on an every week basis. Sometimes they have a good week, sometimes they have a bad week, but there's always something good that you can say to each one of them to make them feel like you care about them, you want them to work harder or whatever, but you certainly don't favor one over the other.
Right. Caroline, what you said was really important for people to hear, I think, is that you're different people, that it would be really easy when you've got the block of time where everybody's driving in. So it's like for me, the Bedore sisters and the Bordage sisters, and when they're coming in, but to make sure, because everyone learns differently too. So people have different learning skills. So I think for a parent or a coach to treat them the same. And Melissa, I really like what you offered too about you practicing them separately. So Austin and Harley, would you be motivated by practicing separately, or are you more motivated by being together?
I guess it really depended on the mood we were in on the particular day. I mean, sometimes there's those days like when I would be struggling with rolls and Harley's working on rolls and they're going beautifully for her. And I'm just like, I need her out of this situation right now because I need not the distraction, maybe not necessarily a distraction, but that kind of energy at the time.
Yeah.
But then there was other times when we would be practicing together and then having that energy together helped us move forward.
Well, so Kathy, do you kind of like, for me, coaching pairs was, I love coaching pairs, but I also find it interesting because as a coach, you've got the time when you've got to be in there directing it. And then you've got that time you've got to step away to let that chemistry build. So I think that might be applicable to siblings sometimes, if they are practicing together, that like, at what point do you just step away and let them have their own dynamic of how they're working together and supporting each other?
Well, I think you always have to kind of do that because they're doing the sport together, even though they're separate, and they have to be able to support each other. They have to clap when their sibling catches a trick for the first time, and they have to hug them when they don't twirl well. It's just because when all this is over, they're still going to be sisters. So
Right.
you want that relationship to be a good one and not driven by the things that happened in twirling to tear them apart.
Totally. Kenzlie and Konlie, how has twirling helped your relationship?
Kenzlie, you can go first.
I think we fought a lot when we were younger. I think because I would get frustrated that she couldn't do things that I could do, and I didn't really I knew she was younger, but I didn't get the concept of she's not developed yet enough to be able to do the things I wanted her to be able to do, mostly sports wise, or like she didn't play sports like where you throw a ball or something like that. So it was just different. But I think with twirling, I think that was a time where we didn't really fight because I didn't know exactly what I was doing. I could just give her kind of words of advice like, oh, maybe I've heard Kyle say this before, so try saying that or something like that. But I think it was just a time where I was mostly just proud of her and excited to see her try new things and catch new things and all of that. Or it'd be times where I was counting certain things or even just playing the music for her. So I think it was mostly a time where we just weren't fighting as much
Right.
for a while.
Konlie, how do you think twirling helped your relationship with Kenzlie?
I feel like it brought us a lot closer. Like, not even because if she did twirl, I feel like it would bring us a lot closer because we'd be doing the same thing and we'd be going everywhere together. But I just felt like she was someone that like wasn't my mom and wasn't my coach, but I could like, she still understood how I felt. And like, even if she didn't understand the twirling part, she just really understood how to like talk to me. So I would always just like want her to come with me to practice, to play my music or to watch me. Like, even if she wasn't watching me, I just wanted to be there because I just knew that she like could easily support me, and whether I was frustrated with a trick or like just not having my best practice. I just feel like it brought us the closest because she also like grew in everyone that I knew, like my twirling family. And so, but I was never like competing against her because she didn't twirl. So I just always knew she was like the helper and the assistant, and like she could just be there for me.
So Jen, when you would win against Melissa, how did you reconcile those feelings?
I always felt, well, I mean, I always felt guilty. Like, I don't
But you
know.
know now that that was like a little misdirected, but your heart as a sister felt that way. But
Yeah.
so how did you reconcile that?
Probably like tried to suck up and like be like extra nice because I felt like I always felt bad that I beat her because like she's my older sister, and like I mean I might have still think I should have like won, but I just like I don't know, I just always felt bad, so I probably would like try to be like extra nice and like try to talk to her, and she probably was mad, and so she would always like storm off or not want to hear from me or think I was annoying, but like my go-to is like I said earlier, trying to get that person to like me. So I wanted her to not be mad at me for beating her.
Right. And so Melissa, did that inspire you in practice?
No, I mean, Jennifer was always a much better practicer than me. So, I mean, I don't think, like I said, especially in my later years, I enjoyed doing pairs and team more. I think individually, I had my goals, and once I hit my goals individually, I think that I always knew that there became a point where she always practiced more than me. So I knew at a certain point that she was going to beat me. There was like a 2 or 3 year span where we were still super competitive and practicing the same, and then she started beating me, and that was a really hard time. Probably like, I don't know, when I was like 18, 19 and she was 16, that was a hard transition. But when I was like upper years in college and we were on team together, I kind of knew at that point that she had surpassed me, and I wasn't willing to practice as much to get as good as her, to still be as good as her. And so I think that that's kind of, but it was hard. It was hard to, understand that she was going to beat me and I was not going to be able to, there was no way that I was going to beat her in certain events, so no matter how hard I practiced.
So did you feel like intellectually you had figured that out, but of course, sentimentally and emotionally, you had to balance that?
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, you have to make different goals for yourself. I mean, I achieved more goals than I ever thought I would in twirling. So, when you're little and you go, oh, I want to be this, like, it was like, I want to go to the world championships. I want to be a grand champion. So like, I hit all those goals that I made that I never even thought it was possible. So, even though, and then it became the point where I was like, I wanted to help her achieve her goals. I wanted, but again, that happened when we were older, 16, 17, 18. That was not a great time. that was when I was learning.
So let's take a step back. So Sabrina and Caroline, for recreational people and kids just starting out. So I'm a mom with 2 daughters. I'm going to get them involved in the sport. What's good about that? What's good about me signing 2 sisters or a brother and a sister? What's the bonus of having these siblings together in the activity?
I think it adds to the fun of it, honestly. Like my best years, my younger years of twirling, my best memories were always being with my sister. And, we always say we used to play baton in our foyer, and we used to pretend like we won Miss Major of America. And that's, one of the goals we had when we were younger. So I guess like I like distinct memories of like going to competitions and us sitting together and, for example, watching like Jen twirl at Congressional Cup. That was something we were both like, oh, we want to do that one day, and just having those memories together, and building on that as we got older. And even with her not twirling, like I loved having her in the gym with me, like Konlie said, and it made it more fun. We would just get to play baton and have fun, and just create different tricks that maybe I'd never used before, but it just kind of was sister bonding. So I think that's super important.
I would caution against the black eyes, though.
So Austin and Harley.
I would second what they're saying with, I would encourage parents to, even if it's at the recreational level, to just remind them that the coach is giving them equal amounts of attention, and it's what they do with it. So same thing when I have students, even if they're not siblings, that might be competitive with each other. It's like as a coach or as a coach, the coach is giving their best material to each individual athlete, and it's what they do with it. So you might have two siblings and like one works much harder and one doesn't work as hard. That one's going to get better. And so explaining it that way to either your students or your children, it's really the goals that they have for themselves and how hard they want to work, because the coach is going to hopefully value them equally. And so if
100%, right,
if a parent is nervous about the competitiveness, it's really what goals they have and what they want to do with it.
Exactly. And Harley and Austin, if you were telling parents right now about starting siblings together, what was fun about being little kids twirling together?
You gotta say about that, Harley.
Well, I guess, that's really hard. Oh.
I'd say one of the fun things about it was you always had a practice partner. And that was something just always fun, because even when you just start getting overwhelmed with things, you could go to your partner or your sibling and you start having fun. And then you can get refocused on what you were doing and kind of forget that frustration you would hit. But I mean, pairs was always a fun thing.
Definitely.
Just always being able to play around and come up with something different and unique.
Okay. Well, and I think that's it. When we look at the future of twirling, I say this on almost every Twirl Talk, is that the future is only as bright as the number of people that we get the information out to. So being able to encourage people and families, and that it's okay, that the dynamic, I think you guys are the success story in how siblings can be involved in this activity, and whether highly competitive or whether just supporting each other. There's so many bonuses to having that, my brother barely knew what I did. I swear to this day, he doesn't know what I did. But, there's just a bonus to that. Audrey, you've been through 2 generations now. You're in 2 generations. Would you do it all over again?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, twirling, it just bonded my daughters and I together so much. I hope they would, if they were on this call, I would hope they say the same thing. But yeah, I mean, there were hard times, obviously, and good times, but you know what, the traveling together and going to the hotels together and having them swim in the pool afterwards, and that was always nice. And there was tough times. I mean, obviously they were 3 years apart, so they didn't compete against each other until the final couple years. But Melissa, now we competed in DMA.
Right.
We really didn't know too much about NVTA as we do now. So they did compete in DMA, and Melissa won every title all the way up. Leanne only won the final title. She tried up until she was 23 years old, and then she won it straight out. So her final title meant a lot to her, and her sister won that title 2 years before she did. And Melissa was the one that worked Leanne. Leanne said, listen, this is it. You need to work me hard. She said, I know you know what you're doing. And she said, I'll listen to you. she was in college already. And so I think that bonded them, really, really close. So I would hope to think that they would both say, that they have great memories for it. And I know we're thoroughly enjoying Arian. I mean, it's been a joy watching her right from the start. And I know when it was Leanne that made the decision, she goes, there's so much more out there, NBTA, USTA. And, when we started going to Twirl Mania and NBTA, we met so many nice people. So many of them are on this panel. And I think that's the best thing is all the people that you meet all over the United States and the world. It's just something you don't forget. It's
No,
a
and it's
wonderful feeling.
all the people we're missing so incredibly.
Yeah.
So Lori, I'm going to impose on you again. What wisdom do you have now, having been through it as a mom and a coach and a judge and now a Mimi? What wisdom do you have for a mom trying to figure it out right now with fighting siblings?
Take it one day at a time. You have to get through it. I think Melissa's advice is good. If you have to separate them. Find what works for one. I know at one point, like Melissa mentioned, I realized that she was better at dance twirl. So I needed to give her, every child needs to feel that they can be successful in something. You have to find what that thing is and encourage it. So Melissa did dance twirl and Jennifer didn't love it. So Jennifer did not do it. So that Melissa could do something without worrying about competing against her sister. So I think that just take it one day at a time and figure out what works for you and make sure that each child feels valued in some way.
Perfect. So we're going to finish up tonight with a little sentimentality. So Jen, if you could tell Melissa thank you for one thing, what would you say thank you for?
Thank you for supporting me. I mean, my later years are what's freshest in my mind, but thank you for always, coming up to me and making sure that I was, in the right mindset to compete. And she was the first one to say that I was the best and that I could win and I will win and I just have to believe in myself. So yeah, I'm just so grateful that those are my freshest memories as our older years together, and it just keeps getting better and better now as we're both moms. And so I know the future is even better than our past. And then watching her obviously parent her, my nieces who I'm obsessed with, that's really special. So yeah, so many thank yous.
It's so fun to watch. Melissa, what would you thank Jennifer for?
I would thank her for pushing me. She was an intense practicer from the time she was little. She was always the kid, I want to do it again. I want to do it again. I don't think I would have pushed myself as hard or accomplished as much without her. So she was the one who sort of forced me to practice and was somebody there to go, do it again, do it again, do it again. She also, when the team opportunity came, it was, hey, let's do this together. Let's travel to California together. So that I'm thankful to her for pushing me and making me realize that that I could still continue and be successful and just push me to practice.
Kenzlie, what would you thank Konlie for?
I would thank Con just for loving me unconditionally and always being there, even when I was in undergrad, when I was in grad school, when I was living out in Syracuse, when I was at Duke for a summer. I could always FaceTime her, or I'd get text from her, or even now when she's at Purdue, she'll say, hope you have a great day, and a couple red hearts and I love you. And so it'll just random texts and things that always make me smile.
Konlie, what would you thank Kenzlie for?
I would thank her for all the constant support. I don't know, she just has always been there and always been my built-in best friend. So I just can't thank her enough for loving me how she does and being there for me all the time.
Oh, see, all these parents have got those fighting toddlers. Just need to see all this. So, Caroline, what would you thank Sabrina for?
I think always welcoming me into every aspect and every part of her life. There's a lot of parts of my life that I couldn't share with her while she was in camp for the summer or at baton competitions. And I kind of got to have the fun experience of life while she was, in the gym. But every time I went to visit her at school, I was in the friend group, she never made me feel left out, baton competitions, everything. So she always made sure that I was a part of everything she did.
Sabrina, what do you think Caroline for?
For me, my best friend. She's always someone I can go to for any advice, baton related, because she does have, that background, or just life related. She's one person that's always made me believe in myself. I do have, am insecure at a lot of aspects in twirling and in life. And she really makes sure that I know that I can do anything I set my mind to. And also always doing my hair and makeup and stoning my costumes, even if it's the night before, because I am not good at any of that stuff. So she's always there for me to do that, which is
well, it's fun to have trade-offs in siblings. And I think you all have kind of demonstrated that tonight. Thank you so much. I think that so many people are going to glean some great information and some inspiring moments out of this. And you all have really set a fine example for families and for siblings and for the sport itself. So I want to thank you for sharing tonight and taking time with this. And I hope that some people get a lot of information out of it. And I miss all of you. And this is why twirling is fabulous, because of being able to share discussions like this. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night and have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.